And now, a KLCS Classic Movie Monday bonus. Cause for Alarm, Behind the Scenes, with Jonathan Kuntz, film historian at the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television.
Cause for Alarm, exclamation point. Cause for Alarm from 1951 was an MGM film, one of those big studios. And it's a major starring vehicle for Loretta Young, who was a great Hollywood star at the time. And it's also a great example of film noir, of those kind of darker portraits of the United States that we see coming out in the post-World War II period. Some of them start actually during the war, but it's really after the war, the late 40s and early 50s, that we see this much more pessimistic, darker and more hard-bitten view of the world. And Cause for Alarm is kind of a classic film noir in that it's got a flashback structure, so we're going back into a mysterious and unknown past, trying to figure out how things got so screwed up. It even has a voiceover trying to guide us through, reliably or unreliably, through this material. We never know really who to trust in this film. The neighbors, sometimes they're suspicious, sometimes they're not. It's a really pretty fun portrait of the supposedly stable post-war world and how, full of cracks it really was. It's written by Mel Donnelly, who had provided a bunch of film noir scripts for some of the hardcore film noir people. He'd written for Fritz Lang, I think House by the River, and he'd done a script for Max Ophuls, I think The Reckless Moment. And his films are always about kind of ordinary middle-class domestic America kind of invaded by kind of darker forces. And the portrait of domestic life here, particularly at the beginning of Cause for Alarm, is almost frighteningly classic. I mean, we've got the white picket fences, and the first 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, Loretta Young spends the whole time as a housewife vacuuming. It's almost like she's a stereotype in a commercial, but of course things are going to turn a little bit aside from the normal quite quickly in this film. The score for Cause for Alarm was written by Andre Previn, who went on to write many scores, get many Academy Award nominations, but this is one of his earliest Hollywood film scores. The film, of course, stars Loretta Young, who's this great and considered very sexy star of the 30s and 40s. She, in her early career, had famously had a child out of wedlock with Clark Gable, Judy Lewis, who grew up and was adopted by Loretta Young's husband in the 40s, Ted Lewis. Ted Lewis produced this film and was a strong part of Loretta Young's career during this period of the late 40s or early 50s, when she's transitioning from her film star career to becoming a television star. Loretta Young was an amazing Hollywood star. She actually started as a child. By the age of 15, though, she was already playing female leads and was a big star by her late teens and early 20s. She had two sisters also who acted in Hollywood films. So all through the 30s and 40s, she's a major Hollywood star and considered one of the sexiest on-screen and off-screen. And in the first 10 minutes of this film, if you want to see Loretta Young, just watch the first 10 minutes of this film. It's just her throwing herself essentially at men in scantier and scantier costumes until finally we see just her torso big in front of the camera as she's trying to get a man to appreciate her. I don't know if the man appreciated her, but I'm sure the audience in 1951 who were looking at all this big on the movie screen were pretty impressed. The film Cause for Alarm is a kind of an alarming film. It's about a kind of a normal couple, right, in middle-class America, suburbia. But the first half of the film really is a portrait of the husband, played by Barry Sullivan, who turns out to be pretty crazy. And the second half of the film, we turn to Loretta Young's character itself, and we find out she's a little, overexcited and maybe a little bit crazy as well. So by the end of the film, our main characters, our normal husband and wife, have been revealed to be people under tremendous pressure and dealing with some pretty radical and exaggerated circumstances. The film Cause for Alarm is directed by Tay Garnett, a great veteran of Hollywood, kind of a rowdy guy who directs a lot of action films, but also kind of some tougher romances in the 30s and 40s. And the film seems to have been an attempt by Loretta Young and her husband Ted Lewis to see how efficiently they could make a film. The film was shot in only 14 days, apparently, and a lot of the techniques I think that Loretta Young is going to be using on her Loretta Young television show in the 1950s are beginning to be worked out in this film, and some of the cast and crew even are eventually going to be carried over to her popular 1950s television show.
Hello. How are you tonight?
The Loretta Young Show.
Loretta Young's television show was famous for the gowns that Loretta Young would wear. She would always come out each week in something even more spectacular to introduce the show. The shows themselves were individual dramas usually, and Loretta Young would often play parts in them. Cause for Alarm, though, would have been, I think, a little bit too exaggerated and frightening, though, to fit into the television show. Loretta Young was one of the first major Hollywood stars to really jump into television. She committed herself to it. She produced her own show. She hosted her own TV show in the 50s. There were some film stars who held back, who would not do TV. But Loretta Young actually pretty much gave up her theatrical film career to become a TV star, and she was quite successful on broadcast television in the 1950s and 1960s.
And now, a bonus. Here are some highlights from a 1953 episode of The Loretta Young Show. Our story centers on night school social studies teacher Jenny, played by Miss Young. One evening, Jenny wins a car in a radio quiz. Her boyfriend Fred is overjoyed, hoping he can use the car too once they're married. But Jenny refuses the prize when she discovers that the car is from a dealership owned by a politician named Mark Mercer, whose views Jenny detests. Her actions make local headlines, and this leads to a meeting with Mark Mercer. Jenny's refusing the prize car over political differences is having a negative effect on Mark's campaign. He agrees to attend some of Jenny's night classes to improve his knowledge of civics. If Mark passes Jenny's test, she'll accept the car.
Take the car, Jenny. It's bread and honey. It's fowl in the pot. Mercer wasn't kidding. A custom-built job with all the trimming.
It's bribery, Fred. Oh, you poor but dishonest young editor.
Can't you see what I see, honey? A plot of ground, a little white house, and a big white garage. Our garage. And in it a snazzy Crescent 8. My bus is 8 years old.
If you ever had an ideal, it'd die of loneliness. How am I ever going to set you straight, huh?
Love, patience, understanding, and taking that 8-cylinder dreamboat.
No.
Oh, good evening, teacher.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Hi, Miss Brock. Good evening.
Can you name the order of the presidential succession? Mr. Mercer.
Of course. In case the President of the United States should die, the Vice President would automatically assume the office.
Yes. Go on.
Go on.
Yes. I mean, should the Vice President die?
Oh, of course. If the Vice President should die, the most important man would, naturally, let's see, that would be the Army, Navy, Marine Corps.
Yes, Miss Frida Foss.
Vice President, Speaker of the House, President Pro Tem of the Senate, Secretary of the State.
Very good, Miss Frida Foss. Can anyone tell me the function of the Electoral College? How about you, Miss Frida Foss?
Well, it has to do with voting, I think. I'm not sure.
Yes, Mr. Mercer.
The Electoral College is a state body consisting of as many members as the number of states' representatives in both houses of Congress, combined together to act as intermediaries in the casting of ballots in a presidential election.
That's excellent, Mr. Mercer.
Recess time.
Oh, hi, Fred. Still mad?
Nah, so you had dinner with Mark Mercer, so what?
You're a good boy.
You know, he's a very intelligent pupil.
Okay. Let's forget about teacher's pet for a while,
Oh,
Say, they've got a new band over at the Roadhouse,
Have they?
and I've got a little something to discuss with you.
What is it? Tell me.
I'd rather save it for tonight.
Oh, tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, Fred.
Sorry about what?
Well, you see, I promised Mark there's this lecture tonight.
Mark?
Yeah.
Lecture on a Saturday night?
Yeah, and I promised him.
Well, naturally, you've got to go.
Well, you don't mind, do you?
Of course not. I know how sacred promises are to politicians.
Oh, Fred, it's just that I feel I can do something for him, that's all. Oh, Dopey.
She was crying this morning. And then she came downstairs, calm and collected as you please, and called Mark Mercer at the hotel.
She did?
She told him she was going to put him to a test. And if he passed the test, she was going to accept the car.
Well?
She gave him the test an hour ago.
Well?
He passed with flying colors.
I didn't tell you, Grandma, but I'm leaving town.
A trip?
A long one. I'm selling the Chronicle.
Can't stand competition, eh?
I'm just hanging around to see the excitement when Miss American Dream climbs aboard the Mercer bandwagon.
What do you think of Mr. Mercer's chances for election?
Well, if folks have any regard for good intentions, I think he's a cinch.
One more picture as you give her the keys to the car, Mr. Mercer.
Sure. I want to thank you, Jenny,
For what?
for what you taught me.
Oh, I didn't write the books, Mark.
What I learned wasn't in the books. To be true to yourself and strong in the truth.
Oh.
I won't let you down, Jenny.
Good morning.
What are you doing here?
Well, I work here.
On Saturday morning?
Well, I asked Todd Griswold to meet me here.
Well, that's funny. He asked me to meet him here. Left a message. What kind of business have you got with Todd Griswold?
Oh, he's the broker on the sale of a newspaper.
Yeah. My newspaper.
That's right. And I'm the purchaser.
You?
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a good way to invest my $3,000.
What, 3,000?
The $3,000 I got for selling my car.
Well, what do you mean?
Now all I need is an editor. But then that's nothing new. I've always needed him.
You think you can buy me for a few paltry bucks?
Can't I?
We'll talk about it over a pineapple soda. Let's go.
What about Todd Griswold?
You'll just have to keep his nose out of our family affairs.